We're delighted today to be joined by Pam Simpson, Professor of Art History at Washington and Lee University. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you.
We invited Pam to speak about her various activities in the community, which are legendary and many. Pam, tell us a little bit about your background. Where's Pam Simpson from?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, and I was born in Omaha, Nebraska, but that was only because there weren't any hospitals in Missouri Valley, Iowa, my mother wanted to go to. So her doctor was in Omaha, and it's just right across the river. But first 2 years of life in Missouri Valley, then we moved to Shenandoah, Iowa. My father was a junior high principal for much of that. My mother taught elementary school. We moved to Hastings, Nebraska when I was in 3rd grade. Ended up graduating from high school there. Then I went to college at Gettysburg and finished my BA there, went to the University of Missouri for my master's, and then moved to Philadelphia, married my husband Henry, and then in Philadelphia, well, we lived in Philadelphia, I did my PhD work at the University of Delaware. And moved down here in 1973 and have been here ever since.
And you've been teaching art history?
Art history is what I do. My specialty is really in American things and in particular American architecture.
Well, I imagine that keeps you busy. You've written some books and many articles, I noticed from the website at WNL. Tell us a little bit about your book on art history on architectural history of Lexington.
Well, this was right when I first came to Lexington. One of the, everybody kept saying to me, you've got to meet Royster Lyle. No, you've got this interest in architecture, you've got to meet Royster Lyle. And we did. We met early on, and as soon as we recognized our mutual interest, Royster says, well, you know, I've always wanted to write a book about Lexington. Would you be interested in collaborating with me? Well, I was just incredibly honored. I mean, here was this guy who was this local historian who had so many roots in this community, and I had done all of this research in preparation for it. So I said yes, and we started right away. I mean, it was almost within the year that I was here, we started working together. And that book came out in 1977, and it's still a book I'm actually very proud of.
No. May that be found at local bookshops still?
Yes, it is. The very first edition of it in 77 sold out within that year, so we did a second edition, which lasted for about 10 years. And I remember Googling the book one day and finding that there was a copy selling for $100, and I thought, wow! You know, and I guess it had gotten rare enough that it had done that. There also was a little note that it said this was Sally Mann's first book. That was pretty funny, you know. It was like, yeah, she did the photographs for it, right? But you know, it was like her fame was much greater than ours by the time that book was earning $100. But we talked HLF into doing another edition of it. In 1999, we came out with an edition that combines the quality of the pictures from the first edition, because we reshot all the photographs for it, with a corrected text that we had started for the second edition and then did more corrections. Every once in a while. We had a few little, you know, errors. There was one point where...
Oh, I don't know anything about errors.
Yeah, I suppose in the newspaper they tell you about that all the time.
Right.
But there was one point where we said something had happened on Lee Avenue in 1922, and it was actually 1912. And, you know, that's the kind of thing you don't catch until later. But we made all of those corrections, and so the third edition came out in '99, and it's still in print, still available in the local bookstores. And
still $100 a piece.
Yeah, and it's actually $50 now. It was $25 when it started. But all of the proceeds from that go to the work of Historic Lexington Foundation, so that's where the royalties go when you buy one.
Well, that makes an easy transition to HLF, since you mentioned that. It is Historic Lexington Foundation, and you happen to be the head of that organization. Give us a little background of what's going on currently with it. You recently had an application to make some changes at Hopkins Green, among other things, I noticed. So what's going on with Historic Lexington Foundation?
As you know, Historic Lexington Foundation is our local preservation organization. We were founded in 1966, so we've had over 40 years of activities within this community. And we're still, our message, our mission is still to preserve the historic character of Lexington and to enhance its beauty and to encourage others in similar activities. So an example of enhancing the beauty was when we decided to put up the fountain in Hopkins Green. It had been part of the original plans for the green. Will Riley, the landscape architect from Charlottesville, when he'd first done those drawings, had the idea of a fountain there, but we didn't have the money, we didn't have you know, all the things that came together for it. Well, when Royster died, we decided that might be a really nice memorial for him. So working on that and raising money to help us do it, we created this little fountain garden. We still have to put the plantings in, but the fountain is actually there. We've had a little trouble with its functions. One of the things, unfortunate things that happened was the city was so concerned about mosquitoes, they came and put mosquito pellets in it, and they clogged the pump. So we were looking at other ways to keep the mosquitoes down other than clogging the pump with pellets. But at any rate, those things will be worked out, and the dedication for that is actually going to be the first weekend in November.
Oh, that's exciting. Now, Historic Lexington Foundation is also responsible for things like the excellent bricking of all the sidewalks,
That's
that
right.
kind of thing. Right? So we're talking about, over a period of 30 years or so, hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, you know, the sidewalks is a good example of what we did. HLF had this idea to put in brick in the sidewalks. We started out with the pilot block there, where we had already done a group of buildings that we had preserved, done the exteriors, sold them to sympathetic owners, and then used that revolving fund money to buy the next project to do it. So the idea, and this was all being done right at the time of the centennial, about 76, the idea was to replace those concrete walks with brick sidewalks, that would create this ambience for it. Well, on top of that, the city got this amazing grant to bury the wires. And so those two projects went together, and the city actually took over the bricking of the sidewalk. So we only really did one block, and the city did all the rest of it. But we felt that this is a good example of enhancing the beauty of Lexington and encouraging others to do it. And the city, in a sense, followed HLF's lead in taking those next steps, which at the time of the centennial, there was all sorts of federal money to help people do those sort of things.
The good old days.
We did it. Yeah, that's right. There isn't anybody giving you money to do.
Where's the stimulus
now?
money when we need it? Well, I know you're active in a number of things. Whenever there's a public meeting, if I look in the crowd, I think Pam Simpson's going to be in the background somewhere, if not leading it. And one of those causes that you've been very active in is the National Organization for Women, the local chapter.
That's
So
right.
give us a little background. What's going on there? You're holding forums.
Yeah, well, right now what we're doing, this is, we're talking here in October, we are doing just this week 2 candidate forums. And we did Jeff Price, who's one of the delegates, he's the candidate for the House of Delegates seat for the 24th District, and he's the Democratic candidate. And the Republican incumbent, who's Ben Klein, is going to talk today. Today's Friday, the 9th, and he's going to talk today at the library. So, you know, when the Women League of Voters disbanded about 10 years ago, we really took on the role of trying to make sure that candidates would appear in front of the public. So, like last year with the city council candidates, we did a whole forum. We had all of the candidates there, and everybody answered questions. When Ben first ran for the House, we had a candidates forum with him and with Mimi Elrod, who was his opponent in that race. And this time we're doing it not as a kind of debate with both of them, but in separate ones. And so I hope you'll come today at noon if you have a chance to hear Ben.
I'll certainly try. I know this might be a funny question, but what do you do in your spare time? Is there such a thing?
Oh yeah.
You've got 4 or 5 hats going here. I think.
Well, you know, I have to admit, once my son grew up and was out of the house, I probably had a lot more time than I'd had before when I was going around to soccer games on Saturday as part of all of that. But, you know, I've always believed, and my good friend Winifred Hatzel was one of my best friends in the community, and she was really a role model for me about community involvement. And she always said that she wanted to live a good and useful life. And, you know, I think take that as a model. If you're going to live a good and useful life, then you use the talents and opportunities you have, and you try to make the world and your own community a better place. So that's why I'm involved in all the things I am.
That's the reason why we asked you to stop in today.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It was fun.